Hi, welcome to Roy's Book Reviews. Today I want to discuss a novel that I really enjoyed. First time author to me. His name is Noah Hawley, and the name of his fine novel is Before the Fall. Before the Fall is a well-constructed, absorbing read. There are books that I meander through, taking my time to fall under the spell, willing to take breaks of a day or two if busy with other life chores before getting back to reading. And then there are books like this one that I plow through, chomping at the bit to get back to it during the non-reading portion of my day. This has more to do with the nature of the story than the quality of writing for the most part. If a book is a thriller with a mystery to be resolved, natural curiosity is a compelling force. This can backfire on a book, though, because the more anxious I am to see how an author has resolved a riddle of his or her making, the more disappointed I may be in the end if I find it to be underwhelming. Conversely, if a book is more about the journey than the destination, in other words, literary fiction, as often described in such a manner, then, I may be less likely to be dissatisfied by a non-explosive final pages of the book. So authors have a catch-22 on their hands in that the more cats they murder with generated curiosity, the greater the potential for letdown is if the ending fails to deliver on a riveting buildup. If you peruse the backlist of videos on this channel, you'll find some examples of books that I raced through, only to be left wanting at their conclusions. That's a me thing. Other readers, most especially those who frequently dive into series rather than standalone titles, appreciate being left hanging by endings that are not entirely resolved, because that means they get to continue on with the literary adventure in subsequent books. I tend to gravitate towards novels that wrap things up within the covers of a single volume. I'm a standalone guy. And when there is a puzzle to piece together in the book, I'm picky about what I find to be a satisfying resolution to it. In the case of Before the Fall by Noah Hawley, I have no complaints. That may be because even though it is a very suspenseful novel with a mystery at its core, the story is less about who did what and the reasons why than it is a meditation on blind twists of fate that defy any explanation beyond shit happens arbitrarily. But don't let my use of the word meditation lead you to believe that Before the Fall is long on philosophical introspection and short on action. It isn't. It is a masterful blend of both by an author who also toils as a storyteller for television and movies, so he knows well that it's critical for a story to be compelling enough to keep the audience in their seats. The mystery of Before the Fall is laid out in its opening pages. A private jet containing two wealthy couples taking a short trip from Martha's Vineyard to New York crashes into the ocean 16 minutes into the flight. One of the men on the plane runs a conservative news network, a fictional Fox News. The other is a high-level financial investor who turns out is laundering money for foreign countries that are on America's naughty list. So long as he is making plenty of profit for others as well as himself, he could care less if his efforts happen to aid terrorists. As a result, he learns shortly before embarking on the flight that his company is under investigation and the empire he has built may soon come tumbling down. Since he works for dangerous people, there is reason to suspect that the plane crash may have been caused by someone with an axe to grind against Ben Kipling. Or maybe the target of ire was David Bateman, on account of the political spin of his television network. Or maybe it was a mechanical error rather than sinister activity, though initial reports indicate that the plane was functioning properly before its sudden plunge. The crash takes the lives of both couples, the pilots and crew members, and the young daughters of David and Maggie Bateman. There are two improbable survivors of the crash. One is a painter named Scott Burrows, who is not rich and powerful like the other passengers on the plane. He's an affable fellow who does okay with the ladies and is determined to focus more on his art career and less on drinking his potential away. He scored an invite by befriending Maggie, who he often ran into at the farmer's market. Is there more to their relationship than meets the eye? If so, can that possibly have something to do with the cause of the plane crash? Along with being a talented artist who happens to specialize in paintings of disaster scenes, tornadoes, train derailments, and even a plane crash, Scott is also an exceptional swimmer. This is how he manages, after not being killed immediately on impact, to swim several miles of ocean to safety. He does so not on his own, but tugging the only other survivor of the crash, the Bateman's 4-year-old son, forging a lifelong connection between rescuer and rescued. The narrative of Before the Fall jumps back and forth between events before the crash and after, and the point of view switches among various characters to flesh out critical backstories. Among these other characters is one of the men investigating the crash, and also Bill Cunningham, the main news anchor at the Bateman's TV network, who is determined to find a scapegoat, Scott being his primary candidate, and to get the big scoop by any unethical means necessary. Then there's Maggie's sister, who finds herself with an orphan nephew to raise and a very large inheritance to manage until the boy comes of age. Plus, she also has a husband that she is unhappily married to. So he is pretty happy about the fact that not only is he a father now, but he is a rich father. Ultimately, the narrative centers on Scott as he tries to adapt to a life turned upside down. One day a nobody, the next day a paparazzi-hounded hero, and the next the lead suspect of a horrific crime, if a crime is what it is. We readers know that Scott is an imperfect but innocent man. What we don't know is what or who it is that caused the plane crash. Over the novel's pages, we learn bit by bit what took place before and led up to the tragic fall from the sky. Very well done by Noah Hawley. He kept me on the edge of my seat with an intriguing premise and kept my attention rooted with skillfully rendered prose. I will definitely check out other books by Noah Hawley. I may even check out some of his screen projects, because now I know that he is a fine writer who is very talented at setting up a scenario that has you anxious to know how it is all going to play out. But most of all, what he is a fine novelist, which is probably the greatest of his writing achievements. So that is all I have to say about Noah Hawley's Before the Fall. I highly recommend it, whether you're a fan of literary fiction or you're a fan of genre thrillers or somewhere in between, or if, like myself, you like to dabble in a little bit of everything. I think you'll appreciate this book perhaps as much as I. And that's all I have to say about it. Until next time, this is Roy of Roy's Book Reviews, wishing you happy reading.